mics on? Can everyone hear me? Shall I just raise my voice until you can? So it's great to see everyone who has made it despite the bar last night. Some of what I say tonight, today, will be familiar to those who were at dinner earlier in the week, and some will be familiar from the minister's talk yesterday. But I hope there was some extra detail in there that will help answer questions that were left by both of those talks. I also need to prepare the fact that this talk is not going to be specific to chatbots, and it's going to be about AI generally but if I make it there, there we go. If I make it there, there will be some chatbots later on. So let's get going. If my controls decide to work. So in terms of what I'll try and cover today, there'll be a canter through some of the strategy of the Scottish Government on AI and the work of the AI Alliance in Scotland, including a number of products to help the ecosystem here, including, of course, the chatbot community. Then I will get around to some of the wider uses of AI that we're seeing across the public sector in Scotland. Now, I'll start by talking about Scotland's AI strategy, which was world-leading in many respects. Back in 2021, this was published, so long before the hype over large language models and generative AI. And it operated around the central principles of trustworthiness, ethicality, and inclusivity, while drawing on input from a broad community of academics and private sector organizations to make sure that that inclusivity was realized in what we established with the strategy. Now, after the publication of the strategy, that community that had formed around its development lived on through the Scottish AI Alliance, which was formed as a vehicle for realizing some of the ambitions set out in the strategy. Now, this is a partnership, an ongoing partnership between Scottish Government and the Data Lab, which is a third sector organisation in Scotland which aims to support businesses and other organisations in Scotland with the use of data more generally. And so teams from each of these organisations work together as an inter-organisational group to deliver on the AI strategy. And all of that's led by a leadership group which continues to have input from some of Scotland's world-leading researchers on AI, as well as business leads from across the private sector and leaders from the third sector too. Now, as well as that leadership group and support group, there's an active community supported by the AI Alliance to ensure that anyone in Scotland who wants to participate in the conversation and learn from one another, they can join in that dialogue on AI. And crucially, as I'll now explain, there are a number of products that have been delivered by the AI Alliance to support its missions on the strategy. One of the most pertinent of these, when so much attention is being given to the EU AI Act in this talk, is the Scottish AI Register, which realises some of those ambitions of transparency encapsulated in the AI Act, and is similar to parallel initiatives that we're seeing in some of the Nordic countries, while at the same time, alongside those, being very progressive on a global basis. The AI Register is a public record now being made mandatory for all public sector organisations in Scotland of their uses of AI for whatever purpose. Now, the process through which the uses of AI are translated into a an entry in this online register. Also includes in it some of the quality assurance mechanisms that we would expect to see to ensure that the uses of AI are trustworthy, ethical, and inclusive, and gets input from the data scientists in Scottish Government to make sure that the solutions are maintainable. More generally than the public sector, the AI Alliance also produces the Scottish AI Playbook, which is a co-created resource with organisations across Scotland to help share learning about the particular challenges of doing AI in the Scottish regulatory and cultural context. So this is a resource being created by public sector and private sector in collaboration. It's gone through various phases of development with the initial scoping in early 2022, followed by the development of the website and gathering of initial content from collaborators on the project, leading then into the launch of the playbook and in a wiki format, the opportunity for ongoing contribution from the users of the playbook. Now, we've more recently, in the last couple of months, been going through a gap analysis and a retrospective appraisal of the playbook so far, because this is being developed in an agile and iterative way. And we're about to enter into a new phase, making sure that where the co-creation and the community-driven approach has left important gaps in what we think organisations in Scotland need to embrace AI, we can fill that in using the expert groups that we have access to through the AI Alliance. Now, more visible still than the playbook is the Scottish AI Summit, which, much like this event, is a showcase of the potential of these technologies, albeit over a much broader range of applications. And much like this week's event in particular, with a focus on that trustworthiness and ethicality and inclusivity, which have been at the core of Scotland's approach to AI throughout. In March 2022, we saw the first edition of the AI Summit happen in Edinburgh. We had 70 speakers, we had 30 exhibitors, 300 people in person, 500 online. And moving into 2023 and over to Glasgow, we were able to increase on all of those stats, shifting some of that online audience to in-person, making sure that there was a richer experience for participants, while at the same time making sure that the materials from the talks were and remain available online, so that it wasn't exclusive to the participants in the summit, the excellent materials that were brought together by the participants. We're heading very soon now for the third edition of the summit, moving back to Edinburgh and happening actually right here in Dynamic Earth, but not exclusively in Edinburgh, because in order to realise that inclusivity ambition, the main summit will be followed by a series of mini summits happening all over Scotland in locations that are more accessible to all of the population of Scotland, to help make sure that we're not just targeting the community in Edinburgh, but that anyone in Scotland who wants to learn more about AI and any opportunities we have to demystify the technology, help break through some of the hype and the misinformation that's prevalent, that's realised through those mini summits. The theme of the summit overall will be trying to answer some of those big questions of who, what, where, when and why with AI. And there's a diverse range of speakers who've been lined up to talk across those themes. As the Minister said yesterday, the summit is sold out for the talking section, but using this venue to full effect. There will be a public open gallery upstairs throughout that anyone who happens to still be in Edinburgh at that point, who was maybe seduced by the fun and the booze last night, they can engage. Now, of course, like previous summits, the materials will again be available online. So even if you're elsewhere in the world after the summit's happened, you will be able to consume the material too, and draw on the expertise of the speakers that we've lined up. Now, as well as those sort of public-facing events and apps, the AI Alliance has, throughout its existence, also produced a State of AI report to help give a clear and honest appraisal of AI, particularly as it pertains to Scotland and its own activities. And so anyone wanting to get into more detail about the AI Alliance, I'd encourage to look up the State of AI report online. And last of all, the newest of the products delivered by the AI Alliance has been its Living with AI course, launched just at the end of last year. Now, the Living with AI course is targeted at everyone and anyone, but particularly people in Scotland, and particularly those who haven't really had much exposure to AI from a technical perspective, those who maybe have the most unanswered questions about how AI might affect their lives and what its implications are for society. So the Living with AI course has been going through an iterative process of testing with smaller audiences, but is moving towards a full online, massively accessible model where, of course, anyone in the world will be free to use those materials for themselves or to help those around them start to cut through some of the misinformation around AI and grapple with some of the implications that it might have for them in their day-to-day lives. And it's not just through the Living with AI course that the AI Alliance has been talking to the normal people of Scotland, the average people of Scotland. It's also made sure to reach out to Scotland's children through a collaboration with the Children's Parliament and the Alan Turing Institute. The Scottish AI Alliance has had a presence in a number of schools across Scotland, asking children questions and sharing with them information about AI. Now, some of the responses we had back, if not all of the responses, might have been surprisingly sophisticated and similar to responses we get from adults in the general population about AI. And I think that's important because it's children in Scotland and around the world who, more than anyone, will be living in a world of AI for most of their lives, and need both to be ready for that and to have a say in how these technologies are shaped by the policies of government. So having talked through those activities of the Scottish AI Alliance, which is the main vehicle for realising the AI strategy in Scotland, I'll talk quickly as well about some of the uses of AI by the public sector in Scotland. Now, this slide is probably redundant for this particular audience, but I'm sure you'll all appreciate some of the ambiguity when anyone uses the term AI, and we've seen the EU AI Act adopt the OECD definition, which we are now doing as well in an update of the Scottish AI strategy, because I think it does a very good job of balancing some of that ambiguity, some of that cloudy nebulousness of the general term, with being specific enough to exclude other algorithmic solutions to problems. Now I'll talk through now uses of the public sector AI, largely in terms of machine learning, machine vision, and then large language models. In terms of machine learning, there are a large number of applications which have been made public, and obviously the AI Register will soon be making full details of all of these applications accessible to anyone who accesses them on the website. Now, some of the most prominent examples have been the use by the NHS in Scotland, by the National Health Service, of administrative records to try and direct support to people who have perhaps undiagnosed conditions revealed only through finding patterns in large volumes of administrative data, like case notes. We've also seen some mature production uses of machine learning by Transport Scotland. Edinburgh is famous for its world-leading bridge crossing the Forth, which I hope some of you had an opportunity to see while you've been here, as well as the bridges alongside it. And of course, Edinburgh has a lot of large-scale transport infrastructure because of its geographical challenges. Its climate also presents challenges to transport infrastructure, and that means there's been various deployment of machine learning tools to try and direct maintenance of that infrastructure as effectively as possible based on sensor and weather data. If we move on to machine vision, which would be the finding of patterns specifically in sort of image or video data. Some of the most prominent examples of its use in Scotland have again been the National Health Service. It's a great asset for the potential uses of AI in Scotland, that we not only have a single entity delivering healthcare across Scotland, but that unlike England and Wales, the data infrastructure supporting that entity is much more integrated. So there's much more opportunity to take piloted uses of machine learning from one location to another. And we've seen piloting of the use of machine learning for image recognition across a number of different NHS trusts in Scotland. So particularly here for identifying potential signs of lung cancer on chest x-rays, in order to direct further investigation. Now, we've also seen use of machine vision by Marine Scotland, a section of Scottish Government committed to looking after the marine, the water environment around Scotland. Now, they have used automated video identification of marine species, both looking in rivers and in sea settings, in ocean settings, like midwater trawls, to identify the prevalence of different species and to monitor the health of those marine ecosystems. Getting on to chatbots, finally, for the audience here, as well as some general and I think sensibly exploratory use of large language models of generative AI across the public sector for some of the much touted use cases around preparing first drafts of generic communications materials or reports, always reviewed by people afterwards. One of the prime use cases I think we've seen, and probably one of the most mature across the whole of the UK, of a large language model has been a project that the AI Alliance sponsored through Scottish Government's very progressive, world-leading even, commercial mechanism, CivTech, which found an SME partner to help develop a multimodal chatbot that allowed people with disabilities to better engage with public services, specifically here, once again, NHS services, health services in its pilot use. Now, there were two applications of AI in that solution, one of them being generative AI for part of the human interaction. Now, I won't spend longer on this because of the time I have left today, but as I said, the AI register is going to be a comprehensive record of all of these public sector applications of AI in Scotland. And so for those who want to get into more detail of that solution, both the AI register as well as the CivTech websites are opportunities to do exactly that. I'll, in my -5 seconds of my talk, just also mention that alongside those very specific use cases, the Public Sector AI Task Force that's been established in partnership with the AI Alliance is helping to convene all of those in the public sector interested in making use of AI in order to make sure that they're learning from one another, particularly in these early days of the application of generative AI. And that's me. Sorry to overrun, Christoph.
Thank you very much. As I told you already personally before the talk, we really appreciate it. Also here, especially from the Scottish government, you show so much involvement, interest in also what we do, and I think we are very interested in what you do. It was really an enlightening talk. We didn't have any questions from the online community. Do we have any questions from the audience here? I think it was a lot covered, so I really appreciated it. A lot of different topics, and maybe let me just say one thing, because I think this is mainly a problem of branding. The name EU chatbot is like just a historical name. In my eyes, this is a full-blown AI conference. It's really not a chatbot conference. It's called the European Chatbot Conference, but this, as you have seen over the last days, this is really an AI conference. So I think maybe I have to talk to Sydney about changing that name. But thank you very much. Really great talk, and looking forward to discussions you might have also later on with our audience.
Indeed. And so, given that we've got a spare second, then I'll put in a trailer for the panel discussion that we have at 11:55, I believe, covering regulation of AI, drawing on a number of different experts, more expert than myself, and of course reflecting on the EU AI Act. Other than that, I hope everyone has an excellent conference, but was there a question from the floor?
It was just a quick one. If still there is time, I don't know. Is there time, Christoph?
We have 1 minute.
Okay, yeah, 1 minute is plenty. Hi, my name is Amani Elbanna, and I'm from Royal Holloway, University of London. Just a quick question related to readiness. I can see that you have a lot of activities for public readiness, and what do you want to achieve from that?
Very quick answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's an excellent question, and the guidance we've been giving to ministers and senior decision makers in Scotland is to try not to focus on AI as a solution that needs problems, but instead to recognize that good use of AI for public services will be achieved through the same method as using any other component in digital, that what we need to start out with is a thorough and systematic understanding of our public services through good design principles, and then building on that, identifying whether those processes can be completely overhauled, or crucially, whether there are components within them where AI might offer some benefits over a human doing that element of the process. So the key message is not to look specifically for stuff to do with AI, but to continue investing in that design work, and crucially, from my perspective as Chief Data Officer, in the data infrastructure that needs to work well in order to realize any of the benefits of AI for the public sector. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Christoph.
All right. Then we are